The Red Sea, 0229 hours local time. The sky above the northern approaches to the Bab el-Mandeb Strait is moonless and absolute. The kind of darkness that exists only over open water, far from any coastline, where there is nothing between you and the stars except 200 miles of humid air. On the surface of the sea, invisible to any eye that is not enhanced by infrared or radar, the USS Dwight D, Eisenhower, CVN-69, a Nimitz-class nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, is holding a position 190 nautical miles northwest of Djibouti. She's not conducting flight operations at this hour. Her crew is cycling through the night watch rotations. Her reactors are producing 260,000 shaft horsepower at a fraction of their rated output, holding the ship at 8 knots against the current. Everything is calm. Everything is normal. And then the sky turns white. Not one streak of light. Not 5. 11 simultaneous ignition signatures, launching from 3 separate coordinates in the Yemeni highlands east of Sana'a, blooming on every infrared sensor within satellite range of the Arabian Peninsula in the span of 4 seconds. The space-based infrared system, SBIRS, the constellation of geosynchronous and highly elliptical orbit satellites that the United States Space Force operates as the first layer of its missile warning architecture, detects all 11 launches at the moment of ignition, classifies them as ballistic trajectories in 1.8 seconds, and transmits the alert downward through the chain simultaneously to the Joint Space Operations Center at Vandenberg Space Force Base, to 5th Fleet in Bahrain, to U.S. Central Command in Tampa, and, most critically in less than 2 seconds, to the AN/TPY-2 forward-based radar system operated by the U.S. Army's 11th Air Defense Artillery Brigade, currently deployed to a hardened site in Djibouti, and to every Aegis-capable surface combatant in the Red Sea operating area. The Houthis have launched ballistic missiles at a United States aircraft carrier. Not drones, not cruise missiles. Ballistic missiles, specifically, a salvo of 11 Birkin 3 medium-range ballistic missiles, the most advanced weapon in the Houthi arsenal, Iranian-supplied and Iranian-modified from the Scud-B baseline through a series of upgrades that include extended range, an improved guidance package, and in at least some variants, a separating warhead designed to complicate intercept solutions. The Birkin 3 has a range of approximately 1,400 kilometers, a payload of 500 kilograms, and a terminal approach velocity of approximately Mach 8 to Mach 10, depending on trajectory selection. Tehran's engineers have been refining this weapon for years. The Houthis have been storing them in hardened underground facilities in the Yemeni highlands, dispersed specifically to survive the airstrikes that have periodically targeted their missile infrastructure. Tonight, they have committed 11 of them in a single salvo against a target they believe they have identified correctly and that they believe their weapons can reach. The distance from the launch coordinates to the Eisenhower's position is approximately 1,100 kilometers. At Mach 9 terminal velocity, the time of flight for a ballistic trajectory covering that distance is approximately 11 minutes. In those 11 minutes, the United States military's layered ballistic missile defense architecture is going to demonstrate exactly why it exists and exactly what it can do. The AN/TPY-2 radar in Djibouti, the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense Radar, the X-band tracking and fire control radar that is the forward deployed sensor element of the THAAD system, acquires all 11 Birkin 3 trajectories within 23 seconds of launch. The X-band frequency gives the AN/TPY-2 extraordinary resolution against ballistic targets. It can track the warhead section of a separating ballistic missile and discriminate it from decoys and debris with a fidelity that lower frequency radars cannot match. All 11 trajectories are classified, tracked, and assigned to engagement queues within 47 seconds of the first SBIRS alert. The system is not surprised. The system is not rushed. The system is doing exactly what it was designed to do, and it is doing it faster than any human decision cycle could manage. The THAAD battery in Djibouti, 2 launchers, each carrying 8 interceptor rounds, for a total of 16 THAAD interceptors available, begins its engagement sequence at 0230 hours and 51 seconds. The THAAD interceptor is a hit-to-kill weapon, like the SM-3. No explosive warhead, pure kinetic destruction through direct collision at closing velocities between 15,000 and 20,000 miles per hour. It flies at Mach 8+, reaches altitudes above 150 kilometers, and is guided through a combination of inertial navigation, mid-course data updates from the AN/TPY-2, and an infrared seeker in the terminal phase that homes on the heat signature of the incoming warhead. The infrared seeker cannot be jammed by traditional radio frequency countermeasures. It does not care about radar chaff. It looks for heat, and a Mach 10 warhead re-entering the atmosphere generates heat in quantities that no Iranian engineer has yet found a way to conceal. 7 THAAD interceptors launch in the first salvo, assigned to the 7 Birkin 3 missiles on the highest confidence trajectories. The fire control system has computed engagement geometries for all 11 missiles simultaneously, and prioritized based on a combination of trajectory accuracy, threat assessment, and intercept geometry favorability. The 7 interceptors climb on columns of white fire that are visible to every ship in the Red Sea with a clear horizon line, then silence for 4 minutes and 20 seconds, while the engagement plays out in the upper atmosphere where no human eye can see it. The first THAAD intercept occurs at 0234 hours and 39 seconds, 4 minutes and 30 seconds after the first SBIRS alert, at an altitude of 112 kilometers above the Gulf of Aden. The infrared seeker finds the Birkin 3's warhead section and guides the kill vehicle to impact at a closing velocity that produces a kinetic energy release equivalent to approximately 300 kilograms of high explosive. There is no explosive involved. There is only physics, mass times velocity squared, divided by 2, expressed as a brief stellar event in the upper atmosphere. The second intercept follows 8 seconds later. The third, 14 seconds after that. 4 minutes and 41 seconds after launch, 5 of the 7 assigned THAAD interceptors have achieved successful intercepts. The 6th achieves intercept at 0235 hours and 12 seconds. The 7th, targeting a Birkin 3 whose trajectory had been assessed as the most challenging engagement geometry in the salvo, achieves intercept at 0235 hours and 29 seconds, at an altitude of 94 kilometers. 7 missiles, 7 intercepts, all 7 achieved in the exo-atmospheric boundary zone, well above any altitude at which the warheads could threaten a surface vessel, even in the event of intercept failure. This leaves 4 Birkin 3 missiles. The THAAD system's fire control algorithm had designated these 4 as secondary priority based on engagement geometry, not because it could not address them, but because it had computed that dedicating the initial salvo to the 7 highest confidence intercepts and reserving capacity for the remaining 4 produced a better overall probability of 0 penetrations than spreading the first salvo across all 11. The calculation was correct. The 4 remaining missiles are now at mid-course, committed to their trajectories, 71 kilometers altitude and descending approximately 6 minutes from any surface target. The AN/SPY-1 DV phased array radars aboard the 2 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, holding positions in the Eisenhower's outer defensive screen, USS Mason and USS Nitze, have had all 11 Birkin 3 trajectories in continuous track since the SBIRS alert was relayed to the Aegis Combat System Network via the Command and Control Battle Management Communications Architecture, which integrates SBIRS, AN/TPY-2, and shipboard Aegis into a single fused engagement network. The Mason and Nitze have had engagement solutions on all 11 missiles since T plus 90 seconds. They have been waiting for the THAAD engagement to complete so that their SM-3 interceptors could be directed at the residual threats without risk of fratricide between THAAD interceptors and SM-3s in the same airspace. At 02:35 hours and 45 seconds, the THAAD engagement complete. The Mason's TAO authorizes SM-3 Block IIA engagement against all 4 remaining Birkin 3 missiles. The Nitze's TAO does the same simultaneously. The Cooperative Engagement Capability Network has already deconflicted the engagement assignments. Mason owns Track 1008 and Track 1010. Nitze owns Track 1009 and Track 1011. No duplication. No gap. The forward VLS magazines of both destroyers open within 1 second of each other, and 4 SM-3 Block IIA interceptors climb out of the Red Sea on the same white pillars of fire that the THAAD battery used 12 minutes earlier. The SM-3 Block IIA's engagement geometry against a Birkin 3 at this point in the trajectory is considerably more favorable than a pure exo-atmospheric intercept would be. The Birkin 3S are in their terminal descent phase, which is actually the phase where a ballistic missile is most predictable in its trajectory. The maneuvering warhead variants that Iranian engineers have developed do execute lateral maneuvers in the terminal phase, but those maneuvers are constrained by the physics of a warhead re-entering the atmosphere at Mach 8+. You can generate some lateral displacement through aerodynamic control surfaces, but you cannot change your velocity vector by more than a few degrees without structural failure, and a few degrees of angular change translates to a geographic displacement that the SM-3's lightweight exo-atmospheric projectile is entirely capable of accommodating through its mid-course update guidance. The first SM-3 intercept occurs at 02:36 hours and 52 seconds, 61 kilometers altitude. The second at 02:37 hours and 08 seconds, 54 kilometers. The third at 02:37 hours and 31 seconds, 48 kilometers. The fourth, the most challenging of the 4, a Birkin 3 variant that executes a 4.2-degree lateral maneuver in its terminal phase at Mach 8.4, is struck by the SM-3's kill vehicle at 02:37 hours and 58 seconds, 41 kilometers altitude. The fire control solution had compensated for the maneuver through a final mid-course guidance update transmitted to the SM-3 via data link at 02:37 hours and 41 seconds, 17 seconds before impact, when the AN/TPY-2 in Djibouti detected the warhead's aerodynamic control surface activation and transmitted the updated trajectory prediction to the Nitze's Aegis system, which uplinked the correction to the SM-3 in flight. The time between the updated guidance transmission and the intercept, 17 seconds. The time the Birkin 3's maneuvering warhead had between initiating its evasive maneuver and being struck by the SM-3 kill vehicle, 17 seconds. The Houthi engineers who designed that evasive maneuver needed it to buy more than 17 seconds. They did not get them. 11 Birkin 3 ballistic missiles launched. 11 destroyed. 7 by THAAD interceptors in the endo-exo-atmospheric boundary zone above 90 kilometers. 4 by SM-3 Block IIA interceptors in the upper atmosphere between 41 and 61 kilometers. 0 penetrations of the terminal defense layer. 0 SM-2 Block 3B missiles expended. 0 phalanx CIWS rounds fired. The inner defensive rings of the Eisenhower strike group were never called upon to act because the threat was eliminated before it descended below 41 kilometers altitude. The Eisenhower's crew had been at battle stations since the SBIRS alert at 02:29 hours. At 02:40 hours, 11 minutes after the launches, 3 minutes after the last intercept, the threat picture was confirmed clear and the TAO authorized stand-down from the highest battle stations level. Flight operations, which had been temporarily suspended per emergency procedures, resumed at 0247 hours. By 0300 hours, the ship's routine was fully restored. The entire engagement had lasted 11 minutes from first detection to last intercept. The Eisenhower had not maneuvered. She had not changed speed. Her crew had performed their assigned functions with the calm precision of professionals who train for this scenario repeatedly and who understand, at a fundamental level, that their job is not to panic, but to execute. Now, let's talk about what the Houthis actually attempted and why the failure was not merely tactical, but conceptual. The Ansar Allah movement has been firing missiles and drones at targets in Israel, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and international shipping since 2015 with varying results. Their ballistic missile capability, supplied and sustained by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Aerospace Force, has achieved meaningful hits against undefended or lightly defended targets, Saudi cities, Saudi oil infrastructure, the Abu Dhabi airport vicinity in 2022. Against those targets, the Birkin series is a credible weapon. Undefended cities do not have THAAD batteries and SM-3 equipped destroyers standing watch. The decision to commit 11 Burkan 3 missiles against a U.S. Navy carrier strike group reflects either a fundamental misunderstanding of American ballistic missile defense capabilities or a deliberate acceptance that the attack would fail, treating the launch itself as a political statement rather than a genuine military operation. If the latter, the statement has been made and the answer has been provided. 11 missiles launched, 11 missiles destroyed. No effect on the Eisenhower's operations beyond an 11-minute interruption to her flight schedule. If the former, if Houthi and Iranian planners genuinely believed that a salvo of 11 Birkin 3 missiles could overwhelm the layered THAAD plus Aegis defense architecture, then the intelligence and technical assessment that informed that belief was catastrophically wrong, and tonight's engagement has corrected it at significant cost to the Houthi missile inventory. The THAAD system that the 11th Air Defense Artillery Brigade operates in Djibouti is not a new capability. THAAD has been operational since 2008, has been deployed to multiple theaters, and has undergone continuous software and hardware refinement over 16 years of operational service. Its intercept record in testing and operational use is documented and public. The AN/TPY-2 radar that feeds it is the most capable X-band ballistic missile tracking radar the United States has ever deployed, capable of discriminating between warhead sections and decoys at ranges exceeding 1,000 kilometers. The integration between SBIRS, AN/TPY-2, and Aegis through the C2BMC architecture represents 3 decades of investment in exactly the capability that was demonstrated tonight. Seamless, automated, faster-than-human engagement coordination across multiple sensor systems and multiple weapon systems simultaneously. Iran's engineers designed the Birkin 3 to defeat the systems that existed in 2010. The TPY-2 and SM-3 Block IIA that responded tonight are the systems that exist in 2024. That gap, 14 years of continuous American development against a weapon system that has been improved but not fundamentally redesigned, is the gap that produced the 11 for 11 intercept rate tonight. Every one of the 7 THAAD interceptors found its target. Every one of the 4 SM-3 Block IIA interceptors found its target. The maneuvering warhead variant that executed a 4.2-degree lateral maneuver at Mach 8.4 received an updated guidance transmission 17 seconds before impact and died anyway. There is a number worth sitting with here. The United States has invested approximately $55 billion in THAAD development, procurement, and sustainment since the program began in 1987. The 7 THAAD interceptors fired tonight represent a material cost of approximately $210 million at the system's current unit cost. The 4 SM-3 Block IIA interceptors represent approximately $400 million at current unit costs. Total U.S. expenditure in interceptors tonight, approximately $610 million. Total value of the Eisenhower carrier strike group, in terms of both material cost and the irreplaceable strategic asset she represents, approximately $25 billion. The return on that $610 million investment is the continued operational availability of a $25 billion asset and the 6,000-person crew operating it. That is not an expensive engagement. That is the most efficient insurance policy the United States government has ever purchased. Paid out perfectly on the first claim. The Houthi missile inventory is finite. Iranian production capacity for Birkin series components is constrained by sanctions, by the technical challenges of producing precision guidance systems at scale, and by the logistics of transporting completed missiles or their components to Yemen through a combination of maritime smuggling routes and overland networks that are continuously monitored and intermittently interdicted. 11 Birkin 3 missiles represent a meaningful fraction of the operational inventory that took months to accumulate and deploy. Those 11 missiles are now debris fields in the atmosphere above the Gulf of Aden and the northern Red Sea, and they achieved nothing. At 0247 hours, the first FA-18E Super Hornet of the Eisenhower's night cycle launches from the number 1 catapult. The catapult fires, the afterburner ignites, and the aircraft accelerates down the angled flight deck and climbs into the darkness above the Red Sea. It is a scheduled training sortie. It was on the flight schedule before the Houthi missiles launched. It is happening because the Houthi missiles are gone and the Eisenhower has a flight schedule to keep. The Houthi movement fired 11 of its best weapons at a United States aircraft carrier and interrupted the carrier's flight operations by 11 minutes. 11 minutes. That is the measure of what the Houthi ballistic missile program can do to the Dwight D. Eisenhower. Not damage her. Not turn her away. Not slow her operations by a day or an hour. 11 minutes. And then the catapult fires again, and the night cycle continues. The Red Sea remains what it has always been under American naval power, a corridor of transit and commerce that the United States Navy protects, patrols, and defends, not because it is easy, but because the alternative is the kind of world where 11 Burkan 3 missiles and a belligerent non-state actor can threaten free navigation in one of the world's most critical waterways. That world does not exist tonight. It does not exist because a THAAD battery in Djibouti and 2 Arleigh Burke destroyers in the Red Sea fired 11 interceptors with collective costs approaching $610 million and achieved an outcome that no amount of Houthi missile production or Iranian engineering refinement has yet been able to prevent. And because somewhere above 90 kilometers altitude, 11 Birkin 3 warheads discovered that the distance between the Yemeni highlands and a United States aircraft carrier is not 1,100 kilometers. It is the distance from the missile's guidance computer to the nearest American fire control solution, and that distance has been 0 for 11 consecutive intercepts. Bye for now.